Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 67 of Talkoffamepod podcast with your host, Kylie, and I'm so excited to have on singer-songwriter Melissa Carter. Thanks for coming on, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course, me too. So you are a singer-songwriter. What made you want to start doing that and being in this industry?
So I have been singing since I was really young. And I always say that it wasn't really a choice. It was just what I had to do. Mm-hmm. I connected to music really young, grew up in a musical family. And it is like the only thing that has always kept me going. So that's why I say it wasn't a choice. It just kind of was within me, and it kept going from there.
Oh, that's awesome. Like music has been like a huge part of my life as well. And everyone's life. If it wasn't for music, I would be dead bored every single day. I'm sure that's for everyone as well. But what kind of drew you to music? What kind of was it always something you always wanted to do, or is it something that's kind of clicked with you when you're young?
For me, it's always I've been somebody who always experiences, even as a young child, I kind of had an old soul, and I always just had heavy emotions. Mm-hmm. And music for me was my way of feeling connected and kind of understanding those really big emotions as a young child. So I didn't watch a lot of TV. I just immersed myself in music because it gave me that feeling that I was looking for, to feel that sort of connection with these really big feelings that I had, even just being really young.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to sell out some very popular and historic venues like the Hotel Cap and the Mint. What was your reaction kind of selling out those venues and getting to perform that? Being really good to perform there at those historic venues and stuff?
Every time I get on stage, it feels so good, and I just feel so grateful that I'm able to be there. And I always felt that way at those venues in LA, especially growing up, knowing about those venues and knowing who played those venues. A lot of people that I looked up to, it just felt a lot of gratitude getting to be there and perform anytime I get to perform live anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So you wrote an album called Lost and Found Again. What kind of inspired you to write the album?
So as everybody has experienced, the pandemic hit a lot of people really hard, and it kind of shut everything down and forced us to, have to be at home. And it made me kind of look and spend more time alone and look within myself at things that I wasn't paying attention to for a long time, because we're, living so fast paced all the time.
Yeah.
And so that writing really came from kind of having to be silent and kind of sit with myself, and just my journey from where life was before that and where it has moved to 2 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. Once the whole pandemic started, the whole world shut down, you weren't able to do anything, you were supposed to stay home. And everyone thought, and I personally thought, that this pandemic will last about 2 weeks. I didn't think it would last any more than a couple of weeks. Then now 2 years later, we're still going on dealing with this whole thing. But what was the hardest part for you to deal with this pandemic? Because when I was doing when the pandemic hit for me, I grew up with anxiety, so it made my anxiety a lot worse. I got myself into depression. So what kind of was the hardest part for you, and basically trying to handle being sick at home and throughout quarantine?
Yeah. So I actually the same, have a lot of anxiety and deal with those things as well. And just like you, having to be home and not being able to go out and not being able to connect with other people was very difficult for me. And also, as I said, music is the thing that connects me to the world. Yeah. That all stopped and it just made it very, very difficult for me to feel like I had a purpose. And I think that was probably the hardest part, and why I threw myself into songwriting, because there was nothing else that I could do, and I needed to find that piece somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Once kind of started, no one had nothing to do. You weren't supposed to go anywhere. You're supposed to sit home and try and figure out what to do at your house, which there wasn't really a lot to do, except maybe watch songwriting or just watch television. And that's what I did. I watched television 24/7 because I couldn't do anything else. But then at the end of the day, I spent most of my time listening to music. Music was always on in my earphones, and I was always blasting it. And if it wasn't for music or television, I would have made it. I'm sure for everybody, no one would have made it if it wasn't like singing or watching television or music. But because like we weren't allowed to do anything. So like, what was really the point of it? And I feel like songwriting and entertainment industry really gone up since the pandemic started. Since like everyone's stuck at home, they were very bored, and new things were starting. Like many things were basically blocked because of quarantine. They couldn't film, or they couldn't songwrite or be in like classes to like record or whatever. So that was really the hardest part. But like out of all the songs basically on your album, what kind of song meant the most to you the most?
So there's a song that I'm releasing in May. It's called OKC, which is about my experience in Oklahoma City when I actually moved from Los Angeles in the middle of the pandemic to Nashville. I took a road trip. We took all of our stuff in the car and stopped in Oklahoma City, and just the drive and the experience kind of gave me this song idea about it. It's about leaving home and kind of having a new chapter in your life. But I think that song represents the most of what I've experienced and through this like growth period. So I think that one means the most to me.
I love it. So like when you're writing a song, do you usually focus on the lyrics first or the music?
I think that is such a good question because I don't have a consistency to that. Sometimes lyrics just come to me and they come kind of in a poetic manner. And then I have to put music and melody to it later. And there are other times that I just sit down at the piano and first the music comes to me and then a melody comes to me and it gives me kind of a mood or an energy that represents an emotion. And that's where the song comes from. So honestly, it could be one or the other.
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
depends on how I feel.
Yeah, like that's really for everyone. Like if one person says like, oh, the lyrics usually come first, like, or the lyrics come first, it really depends on the song because like it really depends on what you write, how your ideas form. Because like when I talk to someone, they'd be like, oh, depends on the song.
Right.
But what was kind of the hardest part for you to kind of be able to songwrite and be able to basically mix those two things together in the song?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I am affected by melody and by music a lot. So melody comes a lot easier to me than lyrics do. And so sometimes that's where I get a little bit stuck because again, heavy in the emotions. And I was always moved by voices and the feeling and the expression that I heard in an artist when they were singing. So I connect to that more naturally than I do being able to piece my story together. So that's more of my challenge. But the pandemic gave me a huge opportunity to really kind of push myself in that area a lot further. And it's been really a fun challenge for me.
Oh, absolutely. So do you have anyone they look up to as a singer-songwriter, or is kind of in general, do you have anyone they look up to?
There are so many people, but lately I have really been listening to a lot of Maren Morris and Carly Pearce, but particularly Maren Morris. Her songwriting, her truth, her honesty, and her most recent record have really just moved me in a new way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like with those two artists, they're basically starting out. Like they're basically like trying to drop new music. They're not as huge as some other artists, but they're like becoming more known, and they're really talented, and they would really deserve all the recognition they deserve because they're really so talented. And like, do you like when you listen to some those artists like Carly Pearce and all those like upcoming artists, what do you find the most inspiring for their songs or some other songs or in general?
Well, for somebody like Carly Pearce, I just really resonate with her story and how much of herself she puts into her music. I think it's so clear, and it's what she does is just done with so much authenticity. I think that's what leaves the biggest impact on me from listening really to any artist. It's if I can feel their soul, it inspires me and makes me want to do the same.
Yeah, me too. So if you could collab with any singer-songwriter, who would it be?
Chris Stapleton.
No doubt.
No doubt. Number one.
No. So since quarantine kind of started back in 2020, how much do you think has changed in terms of songwriting since the pandemic started 2 years ago?
In songwriting specifically,
Yeah, or singing, or either one.
in music. Well, I think that now generally we have a much bigger appreciation for live music.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of forced us to be a lot more present and to dig a little bit deeper. As artists, I have a lot of artist friends who, we have to work really hard. We usually have to juggle a few different things when we're pursuing our craft, and that the stop really forced us to slow down and pay a little bit more attention and like throw a little bit more into the art, into our craft than we were before. So I think it kind of essentially, it made the art better.
Yeah.
And more true.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. So the final question for the interview is, what is some advice for the younger generations that like to be like a singer-songwriter one day?
Yeah. Okay. That's really important to me because it's been quite a journey for me. And I guess my biggest piece of advice would be to not stop. If it's something that you absolutely love and you can't live without, to really just keep going no matter what the result is. If you keep kind of staying on that path, it's going to lead you where you're meant to be. Even when you have moments of, feeling anxious or feeling sad or feeling depressed, any of those things, for me, music always kind of brought me back to my happy place. So I would really just say, if that's your dream, follow it, because it's always going to be your happy place. Make sure that it's always your happy place.
Exactly. I couldn't agree. Like, have you like with those type of things, like during the pandemic, it made like the songwriting more difficult? Like, have you kind of struggled with those things in terms of kind of songwriting and basically trying to make yourself happy with songwriting and everything?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And just a music career in general is full of so many ups and downs that you can easily get lost in trying to focus on the ups and downs versus just focusing on the music. And if the music is in you and makes you happy and you can focus on that, everything else kind of gets quieter. So I think for me, I've had like the whole lost and found thing. I've had a lot of road bumps, and every road bump I've hit, I have experienced those really deep feelings and have to remember to focus back on the music. And it always goes up from there.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was so great speaking to you. You're amazing. And I had such a blast, and we'll definitely speak soon for sure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to hear it and stay connected.
Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, absolutely. Bye.
Bye.